Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you're joining us from today. Thank you so much for joining us today, which is the World Day for Cultural Diversity for Dialogue and Development, or World Diversity Day. We're so excited to launch our Diversity Typeface project today, and we've got an amazing lineup of speakers on the live stream, including designers, marketeers, a mudlark, and more. I'm Steve. I'm founder of Distillery. We're an international content studio, and over the past 6 months, we've embarked on an amazing journey, which we're going to talk you through today. Also joining me on the live stream from Distillery is our executive producer, Louise King, and Peter Hoffa, our client partner. So you've just seen the launch film, or our manifesto film, which launched the Diversity Type project. And we've got a very exciting activation on Twitter today with the 1 Minute Brief community. And we're going to kick off with our first guest, Nick, who founded the 1 Minute Briefs community. Welcome, Nick.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Great to see you. We'd just love to start off by asking you, like we're going to ask all of our guests today, what does diversity mean to you?
Well, I think in terms of OMB and it's the inclusive nature and being able to get opinions, creativity, different interpretations of a brief from absolutely anywhere in the world. And the point of access is completely free, so it doesn't exclude anyone from the conversation. And I think that's what's always been the most important thing about OMB, and I think will continue to be in the future, and allows everyone to be involved. It allows a safe place for people to share an idea without the fear of worrying about what other people are going to say about it. It's a safe place for everyone to be involved, and the difference of opinion, difference of thought, creates better work and a better community.
Yeah, fantastic. And for anyone who doesn't know about 1 Minute Briefs, could you just give us a short, sharp overview of your amazing community?
Yeah, we set a different brief every single weekday, sometimes just for fun, sometimes for causes, or even with brands, charities. And it's usually a sort of an advertising brief, create a poster or something, so the interpretations, the creativity, design, etc. Is up to you. And it's all about, it's literally what 1 minute, it can be a sketch, it can be a scribble. Some people like to design and mock them up, but collectively, because we get hundreds of submissions a day, we can create trends, and some of the stuff we've already seen for the collaboration we've done today is amazing. So we're able to achieve quite big impacts from people to doing a small piece of creativity, and collectively that has huge reach and creates trends and things like that.
Awesome. Hey Nick, tell us about today's 1 Minute Brief.
Yeah, so today's is using the diversity type. As you can see on the screen there, we've changed our own logo to include the typeface, and it's the actual campaign today is to create posters based on your own favourite campaigns from the past few years, and actually sort of changing the typefaces on them to this one. And we're asking people to tag in those brands as well. And obviously we're going to start creating lots of conversation around the typeface, but more importantly, World Diversity Day and the overall idea of diversity. Just get people talking about it in a different way. I think something like this is a great campaign because it's got a creative hook that we can all sort of get involved in, and then that generates a lot of further conversation off the back of it.
Hey Nick, it's Peter here. I just wanted to know, what are you hoping to see from the Ombuds today?
Sorry, can you just say that again? It just broke up a little bit.
Oh, sure. Just hoping, what are you hoping to see from the Ombuds today?
I just think it's the same as ever. Everyone loves getting involved, the enthusiasm. Just pushing it a little bit further, tagging brands in. Seen some of the stuff coming through on Twitter already, and it's incredible. Like I've seen a McDonald's one, I'm loving it. And then also someone then commented, I don't know if he's on the chat today, but he commented that what if it said we're loving it, to make it even more diverse. And I liked the fact that people started to make their own comments and start to improve things. So I think that's what I'm seeing it already, and I'm sure the more people do it throughout the day, we'll see lots more conversations starting. And I think that's it's not just about the ideas; it's about what it can do that goes a bit further.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's one of the things that we saw with the 1 minute brief that we ran a couple of weeks ago, or about a month ago, actually. And there were some incredible entries, and that's one of the really powerful things about from my point of view, about the community that you've created. It's so accepting. People work together. People build on other people's ideas, and these are. I'm just sharing some of the amazing outdoor that's gone live today. Thanks to Clear Channel in the UK and Clear Channel in Brazil. And these are posters that were born from the 1 minute briefs community and now have been brought to life across the globe. So it's been absolutely amazing to work with the 1 minute brief community, and we can't wait to see what comes out today on the hashtag diversity type. Thanks so much for joining us, Nick. It's amazing. Amazing to have you on board. Fantastic. Just in terms of the journey of the creation of the typeface, as I mentioned before, it's been a real passion for the whole distillery team, but it's gone much wider than just distillery. 308 creatives have contributed to the project right across the globe. 203 designs submitted, 54 countries represented, 23 ethnicities, and of course a huge age range as well. And I wanted to welcome Guy, our lead creative from Distillery, to join us to talk about the project from his point of view. And good afternoon, Guy. He's joining us from Singapore. How are you feeling?
Good afternoon, Steve. Happy hour right now. How are you?
I'm very happy, thanks. Very happy.
Oh,
First of all, I
brilliant.
just want to start off by asking you, like we're going to ask everyone who joins us today, really what diversity means to you.
Yep. So I think diversity, to me at least, means that it's an opportunity for everyone to have a voice, no matter where you are, where you're from, or what you're about, what you're thinking, what your point of views might be. I think everyone basically just needs to be heard. Yeah, and that's kind of the gist of it. I think everyone should be open to that idea as well.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I think leading on that, we were looking at Distillery in ways of expressing diversity, engaging the industry, the creative industries in the discussion around diversity, because something is very important to me as the founder of a business. Can you talk us through, rewind about 6 months, 8 months ago when we started talking about this, and what we could do as a business? Talk us through the process. How did this idea come around?
Okay, so the process, it started off with the brief that came in. We know a lot of our clients are looking to make sure that, the brands that they work with include diversity within them, right? Luckily for us, we're small enough that we realize, hey, diversity is already within everybody, right? Everybody has a different point of view. Everyone has different backgrounds, so on and so forth. So we realized that, hey, we're actually quite diverse as it is. So instead of actually maybe just creating a poster or shouting about it, or just, having some statement on LinkedIn like most people talk about diversity, we wanted to do something about it. And basically, this kind of created the whole concept of the diversity type project. We developed it into a typeface, and we didn't know how we were going to make it, possible that we were going to get all of these different designers from all over the world, and our own internal creatives. How are we going to pull all the strings together? Because we're so small, but we managed to do it somehow, some way, and that was basically the gist of it, I think. Yeah, so in terms of the actual creation, the fact that we crowdsourced everything, that made it possible, and we tapped into a lot of the different different leaders in the industries, and we also engaged in a lot of different communities just to make sure that everything is quite on point, and we're not offending anybody, and we're not everyone's opinions were heard at that moment. And then eventually this was birthed. This came out.
Awesome. And Guy, as the creative lead on such an awesome project, what have been, I guess, the most memorable parts of the journey, and what will you kind of take away from it all?
Yeah. So normally as a creative, you have a vision, and for the first time in my career, I didn't have the vision of what the end goal was going to be. I had to actually just be open to what possibilities were going to come, what that was going to be given to us, right? So for that bit, scared me a bit. I'm still a little bit like, oh man, I can't believe it worked. But at the same time, I think that's a big takeaway. A lot of people have a lot of things to offer. I think another point that I just want to add is, at Distillery, we really look at everyone as creatives. Everyone, no matter if it's HR or if it's the bookkeeper, everyone is capable of coming up with ideas, and we've just shown that to the whole world, which is quite impressive. Yeah,
amazing. It's been quite the journey, quite the leap of faith, and it's been so amazing for the whole team to come together and work with you, Guy, and more than the team, all of these different creatives from across the globe. And in fact, that's one important thing, actually. When we were looking to engage, first of all, creatives to submit their designs to the project. Actually, we really thought about that term creative, and we looked to really involve anyone who wanted to submit to the project. And we've met so many inspiring people along the way. And one of them is Amber Weaver from FemType. And we've actually got a little clip to play that's all about Amber Weaver. And we're just going to cut into that now.
I chose the letter O. I thought that the letter O symbolised in the best way what FemType is, because we do want to go, in a sense, full circle. So help people be represented, inspire them, and also collaborate with them, which is why I chose the letter O. Diversity as a whole is very close to FemType's purpose and heart. As a collective, we need to be responsible in representing all women from all these different communities. We realised very quickly, once we reviewed the outputs that we were creating, that there was still communities that were left barely represented. The story that I wanted to represent through the letter was how we had to go back to the drawing board. We went back to the beginning of what FemType really stood for and its purposes and its goals. Back to the drawing evokes things like blueprints and drawings and sketches, all those different elements you'll see within my letter. Fonts are important for many reasons. For me, I think it's because it's part of our culture, it's a very important part of our history, kind of a glimpse into the past, the present, and even the future.
So there's Amber Weaver, who was one of the many designers who were part of the project. But now I'm joined by another designer. We've got Ria on the line. Hey, welcome.
Hi.
Welcome today. How are you?
Thanks for having me. I'm great.
Great. Thanks so much for joining us. Like all of our guests today, I'd like to just start off by asking about what diversity means to you.
I think diversity is going beyond just accepting the differences and embracing and nurturing those differences. So I'm from India. I know like every state has a different culture and different traditions. So we've been practicing it since centuries.
Yeah,
So I think,
and that's
yeah,
that's really interesting. And that's one of the things that we've really learnt around the diversity conversation in all the different countries, the different regions where people have submitted designs from, because everyone who's submitted to the project, we've asked them what diversity means to you, and really different things resonate in different ways, which has been a real learning journey for all of us. I'd love to talk to you a little bit more as a creative about what inspires you.
I think your voice got cut in the middle. I'm so sorry.
All right. I wanted to ask you around your inspiration as a creative. What really gets you going? What motivates you? What drives you to create?
I think there are many things. Like one thing that sort of is common throughout my work is like the inspiration of food. Like it need not look like food, it need not be food, but the inherent quality of food, of it being very tactile and delicious, is something I try to achieve in most of my work. Also, nature is a great source of inspiration. Just the symmetry, the repeats that happen in nature, the flow of everything, how everything is so harmonious. I think that really drives the work I do. And also the people around me, the environment. So there are many things that factor in.
And how do you take that inspiration and harness it to create? Can you talk a little bit about your process?
I don't know if there's a fixed process to everything. So whatever I do, I try to bring in qualities that I usually like. So it might be in the form of color, it might be in the form of the form itself of the artwork that I'm creating. It could be the textures. It has to be something that really appeals to me, and it's only then that I can put it out.
Mm-hmm. And in terms of that process, how did you feel about submitting to the diversity type project? It's a fairly left field project. It's not your normal sort of design process. We tried to crowdsource everything. What was your first impressions when you saw, and what drove you to submit to the project?
So I actually did not create a letter form specifically for this project. I've been working on the 36 Days of Type challenge for 2 years now, and that is just like a series that I create with different letter forms every day. And it's a challenge that many people might know of. So the letter form that I submitted sort of came out of that. And so the whole series is very diverse. Like the A is very different from the B, but eventually it comes together as one family. And I think diversity type is also trying to do something similar. So I think it fit very well with the whole project.
Yeah, it really does. It just fits so nicely. And listen, thank you so much for joining us. We've got your feature on. Yeah, thank you. We've got your feature on the diversitytype.com website, so you can have a look at the letters that form part of our typeface. And just a reminder.
Sure,
thanks again. Just a reminder. Jump on the hashtag diversity type. Join the conversation today. Ask us any questions you've got. Have a look at the website diversitytype.com to have a look at the typeface in all its glory. We've got another designer feature film it's not quite a feature film. It's a film that features another one of our designers that we're going to play to you now.
Is important to us. Diversity is something which is very natural to us as human beings, because we are all different. We work at different pace. We look different. We have different thoughts. We have different ways of doing things. My name is Arindam Paul, and I usually go by Paul Arindam on social media. I am 23 years old. I live in India. I am a graphic designer. For the past year, I have been really interested into technology. Since the world changing. We have new things coming up in terms of technology, in terms of anything. So why not typefaces? I mean, the more options we have, the more we can explore and experiment with, the more ideas will be generated and different kinds of work will actually be produced. We are diverse in our own ways, we are diverse in terms of our works. I feel like a great power for us is our work itself, because we would rather speak through our work than through words. The fact that we are all different from each other and we have different perspectives to look at things, we have different ways of thinking, but to accept those differences and still be together with each other and be part of that community. I feel like Diversity Type Project is something which brings together a lot of different kinds of people and puts forward their work, and if it's compiled into one single typeface, every letter is different from the other one. So that in itself is kind of celebrating diversity.
Hey everyone, this is Peter from the Distillery team, and I am joined by Alex. Welcome, Alex.
Hi Peter, thanks for having me on this live stream.
No, it's our pleasure. So, we've been asking the same intro to everyone. So, you can tell us your name, your job, and what does diversity mean to you?
Yeah, so I'm Alex. I'm the founder of Fairly. Fairly is a diverse influencer marketing agency. In terms of what diversity means to me, I think diversity means everything to me. I think it's so important to showcase different cultures, different backgrounds, different experiences in every form, in every workplace, campaign, and so on. So it really does mean a lot to me as an individual.
Fab. Now, could you tell us more about Fairly and the importance of diversity and inclusion in influencer marketing?
Yeah, 100%. So when it comes to influencer marketing, the campaigns on the whole are not always diverse. I think it's so important to create campaigns that reflect society, as these campaigns are shown to millions of people around the world every day. I think it means so much to diverse communities to see someone like them reflected on an Instagram post or on an Instagram story or on a TikTok campaign. It doesn't always matter to everybody else, but seeing that XYZ brand recognizes your experiences, your background, your heritage, your orientation is really important. And so that's what we aim to do. We aim to make sure that every campaign reflects society and also delivers results to the brand as well.
No, yeah, very, very important. And I know that one of your, big things that you've talked to brands about is the gender and race pay gap when it comes to influencers. Could you talk about that?
Yeah, sure. So essentially, back in March, we launched the Influencer Pay Gap Pledge. There's essentially a pledge calling on brands to help close the influencer pay gap. Essentially, the pay gap is a gap that exists between what female and male influencers are paid and what white and non-white creators are paid and what straight and LGBT creators are paid as well. So having the opportunity to create the pledge and get brands on board to commit to paying their influencers fairly meant a lot to us, and it was great to see a positive reception as well from brands globally.
Excellent. And just a final question, why do you think projects like this are important in helping to grow and develop diversity and inclusion conversations?
I think there can never be too many projects. I think the more we can do collectively as an industry and collectively as agencies will always have a positive benefit. I think there's never a limit to this and never a cap on diversity. I think it's just important to make sure that we're pushing out positive messages and including as many people as possible in the conversation as many times as we can.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for joining, Alex. I wish I had more time, but I know that you're a busy small business guy, so other appointments await.
Yeah, but no, thanks for the time, Peter. Thanks again for having me on the stream.
No, my pleasure. Thank you again. So for everyone joining us just now, you could join the discussion online by using the diversity type hashtag and visit the website diversitytype.com to download the font. And now I'd like to introduce our next speaker, Jason. Welcome.
Hi, everyone. How are you?
I think we are doing fine. It's Friday and nearly to the weekend, and now we get to hear about your sort of exciting story. So, Jason, if you could start by telling us your name, your role, and what diversity means to you.
Yeah, so my name is Jason. I'm an architect and property developer in London. And I love London because it is so diverse, both the cultures, the people. I'm originally from the United States. My wife is originally from Uganda, and we have 2 mixed race, beautiful kids. And I just love that share of culture and diversity.
I thought I recognized the accent. So I understand we have some visuals that you want to walk us through to talk us through your story. So let me, bring it up. So handing it over to you.
Great. If who's ever working the slideshow, you can just kind of click through randomly. But I just wanted to share a quick story with you guys. So I'm a mudlark, and that's a person who searches the riverbed in London at low tide, and we find many historical treasures down buried for centuries, even millennia, in the bed of the river. So one of the most interesting things that I've found is actually a type that's actually extinct. It previously didn't exist until just a few years ago. So originally it was created by these 2 gentlemen, Emery Walker on the left and T.J. Cobden Sanderson on the right-hand side. And in 1900, they established their own unique typeface, and they created it based on a precedent from a Venetian type maker back in the 16th century. So if you go to the next image, so they unfortunately had a very terrible falling out after they created this beautiful bespoke typeface. And this image on the right-hand side is one of their most famous pages out of the Bible that they printed back in the early 20th century. So unfortunately, the partners fell out, and it became so bad that they came up with a deal whereby upon Cobden Sanderson's death, he would have to give the typeface over to Emery Walker. And he wasn't about to do that because that was his passion, his life's work. He was not about to give it to his partner that he didn't like. So what he did is he disposed all of it into the River Thames. So he would go around midnight, and he went about 170 times to this bridge, Hammersmith Bridge in West London, and discreetly discarded all of the typeface, the punches, and the matrices into the river. And it laid in its watery river grave for over 100 years. And then a graphic designer named Robert Greene discovered the typeface and was so passionate about it, he wanted to create a digital facsimile about the type, or for the type. So if you click on the next image, he was so passionate about this that he sent down divers to actually pull up or find the type. And if you click to the next image, you can see some of the typeface that they discovered at the bottom of the river. And so he collected about 150 different pieces of type, and he was able to create a true facsimile of the type, the original Dove's type. And if you click on the next few images, you can see as it came out of the riverbed, you can see sand is still within the letters itself, like that G in the center of the image. And then on the next slide, you can see what he actually created. And this is now able to be purchased on his website. Me as a mudlark, I've also gone down there and found some of this type on the riverbed. And just recently in December, I donated it to Emery Walker's estate. So Emery Walker's house still exists. And so I'm sure Cobden Sanderson is rolling in his grave, because that's exactly what he didn't want to happen, is for the type to end back in his partner's possession. So this is me donating the type back to the museum that now exists along the river in West London, a short walk from Hammersmith Bridge. So this historic typeface laid in the river for over 100 years and has been resurrected and is now in use again.
It's a fascinating story. It's part detective, part soap opera. It's, who knew that fonts could be so so exciting, and learning quite a lot as well. I guess a final question, more about mudlarking, because it's quite a new concept for me, and I'm sure many of our viewers joining. So if people wanted to get a start on it, how can they learn a bit more?
Yeah, so everyone that wants to go mudlarking in London must have a permit from the Port of London Authority. But anyone can go down with a permit and search for these lost artifacts. So some of the oldest things that I've found are Celtic and Roman, so over 2,000 years old.
Wow. I'm sure that's again quite fascinating, and I think for me as a new Londoner, just not realizing that so much history is beneath our feet.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Jason, and sharing your story. I'm sure everyone's been quite fascinated with this this great story.
Great, good to meet you.
Sure. All right. So now I think yes, to thank everyone again joining us today. So if you just joined, you could use the hashtag #DiversityType. A bit more about the diversity type font. You can download the diversity type font, and your donations will go to 3 different organizations: the DEC, UN Women, and the Diversity Trust. And you could do that by going to diversitytype.com. Let's see. So I think we are now on to our next speaker, which is Jess. Hey there.
Hi, how are you?
I'm all right. How are you doing?
Very well, thank you. Thanks for having me on.
No, my pleasure. So the sort of the usual intro we've been asking everyone is if you could tell us your name, your role, and what diversity means to you.
Yeah, of course. My name's Jessica. I'm a consumer insights consultant at Tenbear Group. And in terms of diversity and what it means to me, I think it's quite a broad topic in our particular industry. And I think it's more, if we're looking at it from a data point of view and focused on sort of the insights and analysts, it's more about making sure that you are diverse in your approach, you are diverse in your analysis, and you ensure that you don't kind of introduce bias. And I think this is across every industry, to be honest. So yeah, that's my views.
Yeah, I mean, that's really interesting. I think perhaps people might assume that data is data, but could you talk a bit more about the importance of diversity when it comes to across different industries? Your views.
Yeah, definitely. So I think when it comes to utilizing data for diversity, companies can really become more inclusionary if they leverage the kind of insights. I think, for example, there was a recent report with the Academy Awards. It showed that for every woman who's won an Academy Award for screenwriting, there are 12 male winners. So that kind of data, it's not just within my industry where we're making sure we do analysis and things like that. It can be used across all different types of industries, down to entertainment, down to creative. And it's ensuring that you're not creating bias in anything that you do and everything that you move forward with. So say you're creating a panel today, it needs to be able to be inclusionary with multiple different people in multiple, across every industry. And I think when it comes to data itself, what we're seeing is kind of this realization is that whilst data can really feed our insights on how we can be more inclusionary, for example, in your panel, is there enough people that represent the people that you're actually, talking to or talking about, etc. But there is that inherent bias. One analyst will have a particular political view and a cultural view and a racial view, etc. So any kind of strong beliefs in this area can really impact the way that, you use data. I think there's actually a really brilliant Netflix documentary. It's called Coded Bias. And it actually talks about how, artificial intelligence itself was created by white male, right? So now we're seeing, and this is in every industry, we all use artificial intelligence, whether it's, Facebook targeting and things like that. We need to understand that a lot of this has been created by a very undiverse group of people. And so we need to understand and make sure that, moving forward, any kind of bias in the way that we read our data, the way that we interpret everything has to be taken into account of the range of diversity that went into creating that insight.
Yeah, no, I think that reminds me of a viral video that went viral recently of people trying to speak with Siri and the like with different accents, and them the AI just not being able to recognize different accents, or perhaps English was not their first language. And on surface it's might be quite fun, but it does have serious issues, as you said.
Yeah, it's societal, but misrepresentation has been inherent throughout our society for a long, long time. And that societal misrepresentation, lack of diversity, lack of key voices in the community is now being seen throughout every industry because we are so reliant on data. And that, every single company uses it and doesn't really take into account the bias there. And the lack of diversity in itself.
Do you think brands and organizations are getting better at recognize this, or do you still have to have conversations or educating brands as you're meeting with them?
Do you know what? It's a bit of both. We've got those kind of brands that are really far ahead. They're actually going out of their way to get diversity reports to better understand how they can better themselves and become more inclusionary. And then we've got brands who are just, they're taking what they see as face value and not necessarily understanding, the background to what diversity actually means. So there's a bit of an education process there, but it's really good to see how, there are brands that are really making the effort. Even down to the Academy Awards, which hopefully will change. But this kind of data is helping them understand how to change and what areas they need to change in as well.
Fantastic. And I guess if people want to learn more or speak with you, what are the best ways for them to get in touch?
Come onto the website, shoot me a message on LinkedIn, or give me a call. Phone number's on the website.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Jess.
Thank you very much, Peter. Have a lovely day.
Yep, our pleasure. So again, to remind everyone just joining us, you can take part in the conversation by using the hashtag DiversityType. Also visit our website, diversitytype.com, to download the font, and all of your donations will go to 3 different organizations: DEC, UN Women, and the Diversity Trust. So speaking of Diversity Trust, I think we have someone from the organization joining us shortly. Hello, Barclay.
Hi. Thanks for the invite.
No, our pleasure. Well, we've been asking all of our guests intros. If you could let us know your name, your role, and what diversity means to you.
Absolutely. So yeah, my name is Barclay Wild. I'm the founder and executive director of the Diversity Trust, and we're a non-profit community interest company. And diversity for us is what's in our name. It's what we do. We kind of live and breathe diversity. And I think it wraps up for us into concepts around equality and fairness and equity and inclusion. And really it means difference. And it's about moving from, acceptance and tolerance much more into celebration. So that's what we're interested in.
Oh, I think that's such an important term of the celebrating instead of just I'm being tolerant. just the language itself has great connotations. So if you could, talk us more about, why do you think projects like these are important in helping to grow and develop these type of diversity and inclusion conversations?
I think one of the things that's really important from our point of view is about visibility and representation. You know, we need to see ourselves, and so anything that reflects or represents or better showcases the diversity of people, of communities, of perspectives, of lived experience, which is something that's really, really important for us as an organization. So one of our core values is that we are speaking our truth to power. So, you know, when we're doing work around anti-racism, that's led by my Black and Asian colleagues. When we're doing work around disability, that's led by disabled people. So it's about that truth to power for us is really, really vital. But fundamentally, it's about representation, seeing yourself, feeling that you are being listened to and valued and included.
No, that's again quite important that we're able to see ourselves being portrayed truthfully. Could you tell us more about how the donations raised by downloading the font will help what you do, and how do you hope that to use the money that would be raised?
So one of the things that we do as an organisation is we have what we call specialist services. So those services are particularly targeted at young people that perhaps are not in the mainstream, that can access other forms of support and help. So we have youth projects and youth services that all of the funds that come into us, we actually make priority of making sure that those young people are supported, that they have a voice, because often, well, young people and adults that are less often heard within communities, within society, have less influence, have less of a voice, often are put down or suppressed or disempowered. So what we try to do is raise up. So we try to raise the voice, raise the influence. So we make sure that decision makers are hearing the perhaps the quieter voices, or the voices that are often less often heard. So for us, that's a really important part of the work that we do around that service model that we are involved in delivering. So it's not just about advocacy, it's also we do wellbeing work, but it's really about making sure that the voice of young people and of adults as well is heard, perhaps in ways in which historically they haven't been heard.
Fantastic. Now, Barclay, if people want to learn more about the Diversity Trust, what's the best way for them to learn a bit more and how they can support?
Absolutely. So we're on every platform. So we're on social media at Diversity Trust, and we have a website, of course, which is the diversitytrust.org.uk. And we are, we're UK based, but we're working more and more nationally and internationally. So yeah, we're very prevalent across all platforms, and people can get in touch with us in any of those formats and platforms.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Barclay, for joining us today. It's been a pleasure to learn more about you and the Diversity Trust.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. So I think we now have a film feature to share with everyone right now. Take it away.
My name is Zang Nguyen. You can just call me Zang, and I'm a multidisciplinary designer who are currently working in brand design, typography, and type design. Diversity is understanding that every individual is different and unique, and you learn how to recognize and respect other choices and other differences. As a queer Asian designer who is living and working in Europe, I feel like it is really necessary for me to contribute back to my community to celebrate and spread the beauty of diversity. So I chose the letter V because it represents for Vietnam. And in the letter V, I want to describe the young and modern and also traditional spirit from Vietnam, and also bring something from Southeast Asian culture. To design the letter V, I did some researches about my favorite location in Vietnam. For example, the cities Hanoi and Saigon, especially for the inspiration from the building I love is the BTEC School or Landmark 81. And in the letter, you can see the difference from the old and the new. And because Vietnam is still a developing country, I want to describe the traditional side and also the modern side of it.
And now we are back, and I believe my next guest is Marsha. Hi, Marsha.
Hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, depending where you are.
All of the above. So, Marsha, I've been asking the same intro for everyone. So, if you could tell us your name, your role, and what diversity means to you.
So my name's Marsha Ramroop. I'm the new Director of Inclusion at the Royal Institute of British Architects. And diversity for me it's a fact. It's just the mix of visible and invisible difference, which is applicable to all of us. Inclusion is the act. It's how to value, respect, listen to, involve difference.
And
that's where, I really see it as working hand in hand rather than necessarily, and being clear about what the different definitions are so that we can actually achieve equity when they work together.
So I guess as your role as a Director of Inclusion, if you could tell us more about, I guess, the link between diversity and architecture, because I guess most people wouldn't necessarily make that connection at first. So it'd be interesting to get your thoughts on that link.
Well, as I suggested, I'm new to this role, but I absolutely wanted to do it because I'm a believer that the built environment helps us formulate our thoughts, our ideas, our language. And it's one of the reasons, I'm so intrigued by this font, because I feel that if I could influence the building of inclusive spaces, I felt that this could inform our language, which then informs our thoughts and informs ultimately our behaviors and actions. So the font really is part of that built structure which influences our language. And it's really important to create accessible spaces, and that's not just physically accessible spaces, but spaces where people feel safe. So, women walking in cities can feel like they can do so at night, and they it's open and they feel comfortable with that. Thinking about how spaces can be used for queer folk, things like all the ways that we can create spaces, which means that we feel that space can be for us. And so hugely great link between diversity and architecture.
And do you think those type of conversations are happening a lot more, not just within perhaps the architecture expertise space, but perhaps the greater public as well?
I hope so. I think one of the things about working in the diversity and inclusion space is that you are essentially in a bubble as well. So there's a sense that, we're all talking about it, but is it really being spoken about elsewhere? So I'm really, really hopeful. It took a tragedy. It took a major, awful murder of George Floyd to get people talking about race and seeing racism for the reality that it is structurally. It's all those small microaggressions as well as those overt ones, the way that our incarceration systems and justice systems work, employment practices, and ultimately, when you peel back the question and you ask, well, where is discrimination coming from? It comes from all of us. It comes from our bias. It comes from the way in which we're socialized. It comes from the history that we're taught and not taught. It comes from a lot of different structures. And so we have to really look at those structures and say, what is it about them that needs to be faced, replaced, dismantled, in order to bring about the changes that we really want to see? Yes, I think that the conversation is starting to happen, but a conversation just isn't enough when we've had hundreds of years of discrimination and all of humanity not being treated with equity. We need to move to action. And so, the people who are engaged with this stream right now, I wonder if we're preaching to the converted. Who are we not reaching and how do we reach them? And maybe this font is one way to do that.
No, I think that's a really good point. And perhaps in the conversations to the, as we preach to converted, is perhaps we give the best tools for them to continue the conversation. And I guess to tackle that, if you could talk through more of CQ, cultural intelligence, because I think that'll be interesting for those joining us today.
Yeah, so CQ, cultural intelligence, is my personal area of expertise. So CQ, Q is a quotient. That's what the Q stands for, like IQ or EQ. Excuse me. And CQ is a measure as well as an improvable skill. So it's the capability to work and relate effectively with people who are different from you. So it's an intersectional approach to inclusion, asking you to think introspectively. What is it about me which means I'm not being inclusive of you? And it's a framework which allows us to tackle that bias that I discussed, because a belief in our own personal objectivity, that's a fallacy. We need a framework to fall back on in order to be consciously inclusive. So researchers ask the question, what's the difference between those that succeed in today's multicultural world and those that fail? The difference between success and failure when working with people who are different from you. And the answer they came back with was CQ. And CQ is made up of 4 capabilities. Drive. Are you motivated? Do you actually want to work and relate effectively with people who are different from you? Knowledge. What do you know about those who are different from you? What do you know about their values, especially as it relates to your own? And understanding the difference that might exist and how you then might, build a bridge between the two. The third capability is strategy. Do you plan? Are you hugely self-aware? Do you check your assumptions, which is really important, because if you don't have that piece, you're likely to act in a stereotypical and tokenistic way. And then the final capability, action. Ultimately, people judge us on our behaviors, and we need to adapt or not adapt given a situation. So it's a brilliant answer to the question, how do I do inclusion better? Because a lot of people know why they want to do diversity and inclusion. They may well have been convinced of the need, and they know what they want those outcomes to look like. But the bridge between the two, I believe, is having cultural intelligence.
Yeah, I guess having a framework for people to navigate around can help address issues that might be quite emotional for a lot of people. So, we've seen heated conversations about statues or renaming buildings or who owns certain spaces, and perhaps this is a way to still have those difficult conversations, but at least we have a framework for people to navigate around.
That's so important. I mean, addressing that issue of discomfort. So I don't say get comfortable. I used to say get comfortable with being uncomfortable. But what I really mean is we have to lean into our discomfort. When we lean into our discomfort, that's when we can learn and grow. We are likely to become defensive, but what we have to do is understand why we're reacting in that way. And when we get to the bottom of that, then we can actually, do things differently in future. If we get defensive, we have 2 choices. I mean, Robin DiAngelo, who wrote the book White Fragility, talks about the choices that we have to lean in or to shut down. And if you shut down, well, you're going to walk away the same way you came into any conversation. So be prepared to be defensive, acknowledge it, be with that feeling in that moment, and then work through it. Because if you don't, then you're not going to grow. And certainly having those conversations have been socialized, politicized, ideologized to be difficult. And so we have to recognize the structure that's created that discomfort and work to undermine that so that we can topple it and create a new way of working and relating effectively with each other.
Final question I have is, why is working effectively with related to people who are culturally different to us, whether it's gender or background or whatnot, why is it so important for all of us?
Well, it's crucial. It's crucial to work and relate effectively with those who are different from us, because those who are different from us deserve to be treated well. They deserve the respect and value and everything that you'd want for yourself. And if we can't effectively work and relate with those who are different from you, how can we collaborate well? How can we innovate? How can we move forward? And so that's why it's important. I mean, it's important for all humanity. I believe we're on the cusp of a cognitive evolution, where we can stop being scared of difference, because, you know, that's the way we're somehow wired. To actually, you know, we are humans with this amazing capacity, not only to think, but to think about what we're thinking about. So let's do that. And let's use this next stage in human evolution to be a cognitive one, rather than losing our, you know, little toe, and think about how we can grow and work effectively with each other. And this project, you know, I think can influence the thought process and make change through influencing the thought process. The font can make conscious the words that we're typing, the language we're using, therefore the way we're thinking, and therefore our behaviors. And that's why it's actually so simple, but so revolutionary, and therefore evolutionary. I really, you know, congratulate the people who came up with the idea.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you again, Marsha, for joining us. I wish we had more time to discuss. But thank you again. And now I'm going to hand it over to Steve. But first, I believe we have another feature that features one of our designers.
My name is Alana Flowers. I live in Brooklyn, New York, and I'm a full-time freelance lettering artist and designer. I was inspired to participate in Diversity Type because I've personally never seen a typeface where each character is unique and by a different unique person. No two people are the same, so why not have each and every character of the typeface be completely unique, and as unique as the people behind it. So I chose the @ symbol, so I sort of got a letter and a symbol sort of put in one. And it's pretty interesting because its origin and its history is pretty mysterious. It's stated to have a myriad of uses in history, but it's actually quite old despite its close link to all of our technology and our email and our social media, but it's got quite a history behind it. The idea of interconnectivity came to my mind as well, especially because this is a diversity typeface, thinking of it as like something that links us all, and then you think of link and then you think of technology anyway, so it's just got a lot of different meanings for me that inspired me to pick it. I think when people are thinking about diversity, they think of it as being able to dismantle the entire system, and I feel like trying to employ diversity in that way can be very overwhelming and maybe like really intimidating for people, but I think it can be as simple as looking to other designers or other artists that employ different mediums from theirs, or are from a different geographical location than them, or, you know, doing research on something that's outside of their own perspective or background, and that can be a way of using diversity as a designer.
Fantastic. So that was Alana, another one of our designers who submitted to the Diversity Type project. Just a reminder that you can go to diversitytype.com to download the font. It's available today, and all funds from downloading the font go to 3 great organizations: the DEC, the Disasters Emergency Committee, UN Women, and the Diversity Trust. So it's all for some really very good causes. And speaking of very good causes, we've got Sarah joining us now from Together Equal. Hi, Sarah. How are you?
Hi, Steve. I'm great. Thank you. I've got a bit of a cold, so I'm a little bit foggy. Apart from that, I'm good. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me today.
Yeah, listen, thank you so much for joining us. Like with all of our guests, we're starting off the conversation with asking them what diversity means to you.
So, I'm thinking about this. So to me, diversity is acceptance. That in a workplace, if you get a job, you get the job for who you are, but you can't keep that job unless the people in the workplace accept you for who you are. It's about not trying to pigeonhole people or give them a label. I mean, the questions that people are, where do you come from? Are you married? Where's your girlfriend? You know, there's just so many assumptions that are based on social stereotypes that make somebody feel not accepted, which people don't even realize that they're creating that situation for somebody. So I think diversity is 100% about acceptance and accepting people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, amazing. And that's very much why we started the diversity type project at Distillery, because we wanted to have discussions within the business that sometimes people were slightly uncomfortable to have. They weren't sure of how to approach certain conversations, and those by talking about a typeface and asking questions about a typeface took the conversation around taking away from people and being able to ask questions that they wanted to ask about diversity and inclusion while framing that conversation around the typeface, which to me was, you know, really interesting and took us all on this learning journey. And it's so great to have you joining today to talk about Together Equal. For people who haven't heard about, you know, this amazing initiative, could you talk us through it? Give us a bit of an introduction.
Yeah, so where to start? So Together Equal is a profit with purpose. Our mission is to change the world one conversation at a time. We're really focused on diversity, inclusivity, and belonging. We started off for about a decade. I worked with a charity that supported victims of violence against women and girls. And as time went on, they struggled increasingly to raise money. Either it was so competitive getting money from the corporate world, or there's only so much that an individual can do. Eventually, the charity went into administration because they couldn't raise the funds. And it just bothered me. There were so many charities that were going under for that very reason. They didn't have a sustainable income stream. So I thought, okay, how can I solve this? I'm a marketing person. Surely there's something I can do. So I had a look, and I was like, right, okay, there's lots of charities. They're selling these branded merchandise. It's a rubber band with a brand on it. It doesn't create any conversation. It's very passive. It does raise money, yes, but what does it really do? So that's how I kind of came up with this idea of these conversation cards. So the conversation cards, we started off producing them at cost, and the charities sell them and keep all of the profits. So they just buy them from us for the cost. But we work with a team of psychologists and specialists from the violence against women and girls kind of environment, school psychologists, and came up with a whole bunch of questions ranging from what do animals talk about, but to things like, if somebody buys you a gift, you have to be nice to them. Is it all right to get angry? Who should have the last say in a family? To start these stereotype, like, is it okay to call a girl manly? Are boys able to cry? So just really kind of looking at those stereotypical issues and getting people to talk about them. So we delivered those, and we've now got 3 sets actually. We've got the original set, then we've got a second set which is more social, focusing on social questions like why do nurses earn less than lawyers? The big question. And we've got a third set coming out which is talking about race. I was talking to a local councillor, Emily Davey, who's the wife of Sir Edward Davey, and we realised that actually there's a really big need for these kind of conversations to be had in schools, especially with, start off in primary schools where we could go in and try and address these issues and social stereotypes before they really start to take root, so we can get children thinking beyond what they've been told, which is, you know, this has been set centuries ago. The ancient Greeks were talking about a woman who showed leadership traits, being manly and hairy and having a deep voice. I mean, these stereotypes go way, way, way back, and we've not challenged them at all. So we started working with the local primary school, and we found that the work that we do, having these conversations, really does have an impact on the kids' engagement. It resolved peer-to-peer conflict, peer pressure on their behaviours, improved self-confidence and self-esteem. So we've carried on doing that after that initial pilot. We're actually in a couple of schools now. And we've also extended to secondary schools, where we go in more as an intervention with some kids who are really struggling to engage with schools are struggling to engage them too. So it's a two-way street, but we're going in and really working with those on a smaller group basis to try and help them to engage. And ultimately, inevitably comes down to the social stereotypes, their self-confidence, their self-esteem. It's all interwoven. And then off the back of that, we've also launched our corporate workshop program, which is all focused on having conversations in the workplace, and having those tricky conversations. That exactly what the diversity typeface is aiming to encourage as well. And all of the money, every time we do a corporate workshop, that funds a 10-week program in the school. So the school program is free, and it's funded from our corporate workshop stream and from the sales of our conversation cards. That was sorry, there's a lot of information.
Wow, it's such an incredible project, and just hearing you talk about it all, it's so inspiring. And I think in some ways it goes back to what Marsha was talking about around the dangers of preaching to the converted. Like, I think it's quite easy, something that we talk about a lot with advertising. And it's about how to get the conversation out of the bubble, how to get it out of the echo chamber. And I think that's one of the really nice things, one of the many lovely things about the project. It's actually starting these conversations, getting people engaged in a conversation that perhaps they might not be engaging with at home or whatever, and getting people thinking. Can you tell me about some more of the feedback from people who've engaged in the program in your workshops?
Yeah, so it's, I think the biggest challenge that people have, that Marsha alluded to it, people don't know how to start the conversation, and they don't know what to say in the conversation. So a lot of the stuff that we do is about it being a safe space, and you can say something, and if it's not appropriate, then somebody can tell you that and explain to you why not. And that's what's so kind of fundamental to everything. We've had really good feedback that's really helped get the conversation started, and by opening the kind of floodgates, that people feeling empowered to say something and other people feeling empowered to correct that, means that the conversations are much more meaningful. From the school program, I mean, the kids and the teachers all love it. The kids are always asking if we can do it for longer, if they can have more. We've had some heartbreaking, that's a bit of a dramatic. We do a thing where the kids can focus on we look at their positive thoughts and negative thoughts. And some of the negative thoughts, and we're working with 10 and 11-year-olds, and they've been told that they will never amount to anything, that they are worthless, and you're like, oh my goodness. And then we focus on the positive thoughts, and they say, well, we've had this work, we know actually that I am heard, I am listened to, I am supported, I feel valued. And so just seeing that shift in the work that we do is amazing. We also do a lot of stuff. We get the modules. So first we look at what is equality and what is equal, and how being unequal can affect outcomes for individuals, and then we look at what it is to be male and what it is to be female. And then the fourth week we do a session where there's a trial. And the first year we did it, the boys, the trial, the question is, it's easier in life to be a woman. And then the girls have to say, no, it's not. And the boys have to say, yes, it is. So they're kind of the defendant and the plaintiff kind of thing. The first year we did it, the girls did the girls and the boys did the girls. The boys did the boys. This time it's had a real mixture of both groups are mixed, and it gets very passionate, and it's great. It's really, really amazing to see that the kids just embrace and run with what we're trying to say to them, which is, you don't need to be pigeonholed, you don't need to be labelled, you are you don't need to be told by society or other external factors who you are.
Yes, it's amazing. It's such a great project. And I think, you know, again, what Marsha was talking about is like leaning into those areas of discomfort, and that's sort of, you know, really where some interesting change and positive change can come about. Can you tell us how people can find out more about Together Equal? Give us the website, give us the hashtag, so people can get involved.
Yeah, the website's togetherequal.com. The hashtag is #TogetherEqual, surprisingly, or not. We're one of 19 social enterprises that have been invited to join eBay. They're doing they're supporting social enterprises by giving them a store for a year for free. So we're on their program, so you can buy the cards on eBay as well. That's it. Yeah, there's a contact us form on Together Equal. So if anybody wants to find out about a corporate workshop or nominate a local school or send some cards to a school, because even if you don't have kids, you can still help other people have those conversations, then that can all be done on the website.
Yeah, amazing. And of course, if you check out the hashtag diversity type, you'll see that Together Equal has used the diversity type hashtag font today on social. So check that out. And on our socials, we'll share links to Together Equal. Thanks so much for joining us today, Sarah. It's such a great story.
That's a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Amazing. Thanks again. And I'm going to hand over to Louise King, our producer, who's going to talk to Lucy Renee, who is a board director at Advertising.
Thanks, Steve. I think before I speak to Lucy, we are having our diversity type manifesto film. I think the guys are queuing that now. And I believe I'm being joined by Lucy, Board Director of Advertising.
Hello, hello.
Hey, Lucy, how are you doing?
Good, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us. So as you know, we're asking all of our guests about diversity. So tell us a bit about what diversity means to you.
Well, I guess it's what it means to me is it's reality. I'm a strategist in my day job. Advertising is a volunteer organisation. I'm a board member, but you know, we are really here to sort of celebrate and harness the power of diversity inclusion in advertising, particularly in LGBTQ+ element of it, but in a holistic sense because of the intersectionality. You know, you can't be literally black and white about these things, and it is reality. And good advertising harnesses and reflects the people that you are trying to communicate to, and so. To think that it's anything else other than that is unhelpful. But you know how we make sense, and it's really interesting hearing everyone's talk earlier because you know the danger of stereotypes, and they exist because they help us understand and group and understand the world, frame the world, until they limit us, and that's where things like this project can really amazingly drive reappraisal and mindfulness, as Manisha was saying about, yes, cultural intelligence. I was just like, yes, that's exactly it. So yeah, but it's reality, and good communication acknowledges that and doesn't limit people to any one category, I think is the important thing for me.
Awesome. And I understand you've been looking at some of the 1 minute brief entries from this morning, with that kind of advertising lens. Have any stood out to you from a kind of creative point of view?
It's great. It's really, I mean, this first one, for example, I just pulled out 3 here, just they're rolling in. This one came out by 9:30 this morning. Which is great, seeing that sort of onboard community, and which is open to the public. Anyone can get involved. I'd encourage you to check out the hashtag on Twitter, have a look, what you see, and you know, as they get promoted. Because I think the top 5 are going to actually work with distillery to get promoted, which is amazing. But this is just one of my personal early faves, because what they're doing is they haven't just changed the font; they've augmented the message in a credible way for that brand. So everyone knows the line, McDonald's, I'm loving it. And then there's an implicit story there of what is this font about, and that driving that reappraisal. But it's authentic, it's credible, it works with the brand in a beautiful way that can be explained and elaborated on elsewhere. So yeah, this was a early doors, but really, really promising start to the whole day. And yeah, I mean, I don't know what your thoughts are.
Well, I think it's, you know, as soon as you read I'm loving it, you think of McDonald's. So you're like, oh, you get the connection. Obviously, McDonald's, again, is a global brand. Everybody knows about it. So in that sense, it's, really, really
But then
clever.
there's that double play on I'm loving diversity.
Yeah.
You know, all sorts, in whatever way that you want. But so it's a lovely play there. And I just thought it was a very intuitive, clever way of using a diversity top. Again, just encouraging curiosity and kind of like, oh, what's that about? But equally,
and a great play on the colours as well, in terms of the McDonald's branding, isn't it? Yeah.
So really clever application, and it works as an ad, but it also works to continue the conversation. So love it. I'm loving it indeed. And then there's another one. If we click on, which I just popped in again, these are all just from the early hours, and you know, everyone knows Nike. They're playing to strong brands here. It does help when you're doing just do it, and actually it's diversify it. And what I loved, you know, there's loads of great examples coming in. But what's great about this is, you know, diversity doesn't mean when you put it into an ad or communication that it has to suddenly be rainbows and craziness. It can just be simplicity and purity of thought, and this is just a black and white execution that just says what it's doing. And there's some really other great examples, like there's some Guinness ones coming through, which is just black and white plays, where they're just playing with their classic. You know, recently they've done the ads with the white heads. Oh, just no, staying on the previous one. If we go back, it's like just on the black and white, and it's simple, and it's just playing on diversity data.
There is something quite nice, isn't there, about kind of just simple creative that just kind of stops you in your tracks, you know. And like we've seen with the previous example, McDonald's, now Nike, immediately they're brands you recognise, but there's a pull there, which is diversity, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, really, really strong.
And just by changing just do it, it just has that play. And what's also brilliant, and why this deserved a bit of a highlight, is because it's credible for that brand. You know, Nike is pretty good for reflecting a range of body types, ethnicities, intersectionalities of all sorts in their sponsored athletes and their protagonists in their ads. So, you know, that's another thing that I say as advertising. Again, I love it. We'll make a safe space. We do awards, which is similar kind of encouraging effort to just have a go. But if the only thing really to hold at the core of what you're doing is it credible for your brand? Is it authentic? And Nike to do that just like this is a clever, authentic way to do it. So yeah, so that's why I loved it. There was also, before we skip on, another one that I thought was just a clever, just again, to encourage you guys to have a look online, was NutriBullet, mixing it up. So again, that was just true to their product, is they mix up and they just show lots of fruit and veg, and you know, and they mix a smoothie. That's what they exist, is to mix it up. But it's all in a typeface, and it's like, okay, I get what it's doing here, and it's clever, and it's true to its product, in a way that you know, you're not just mixing up oats and that, you're mixing up bananas and grapes and whatever you want, but
yeah, everyone's involved.
yeah, and it's better to be mixed up, right? So there's a nice image in there. Anyway, but yeah, so this is a good one. And then if we go on to the next one, which we teased just before, and this one I just thought was a great one.
So clever, isn't it? Awesome.
You know, these are all the great examples of showing it doesn't take that much to actually just make, you know, we have
too much time or a lot of time. You know, as creatives, we sit there and bowl over a brainstorm and, you know, knock ideas around. And actually, what this is showing us is it's actually quite simple to do, to come up with a really compelling, get a brand, come up with a mission, and yeah.
And it's and all it is, you know, as you say, they've thought of this, but they've thought of it because they've been triggered to be a bit more mindful and have a little play. And you'll see through the Twitter, I bet some of these brands will reoccur, and you'll see a few different variants of them. And that in itself is exciting to see as an exercise with 1 minute brief. But this was a great one of, you know, king of beer, and it can be a queen of beer, but they haven't changed the image. They haven't made it pink or like played to extreme cliches of queens and making it all like rainbowy and things, which is fine. But equally, let's not limit or pigeonhole different stereotypes. And just by changing the name and using the typography, you show it does the job of kind of going.
And I love the tweak on the lid as well. That's so clever.
Because I think there's a version where it's king of beers and it's got the thing, but you don't need to change it. Maybe they did change it, but anyway, it's intuitive. It feels credible for the brand, and
very easy to look at as well. Like you get it straight away. Simple.
Yeah. And so I mean, I'm coming from a very advertising perspective of what's it saying, what am I taking out from it, how do I feel about it, but what's really great. It's just so encouraging to see how many great thoughtful executions just by being, you know, just by this project and initiative, giving a safe space to like have a go. How about you just what happens when you just essentially change a font mindfully? You know, it isn't just a case. And these are 3 great examples of they haven't. I mean, in some they have changed the font, but they've maybe somewhat, and a couple of them changed the word, but it's not undermined the effectiveness of the ad. It's not undermined. You know, none of the businesses would be offended by any of these executions. In fact, if they've got any smarts, they should probably run them.
Take it up, yeah.
But yeah, so it's really a great selection already, and I'm keeping my eye. And what's lovely is seeing the comments coming in as well of people just, and I think from watching the live stream of amazing initiative, just downloaded the fonts. Awesome. You know, lots of praise for it. So,
I mean, it has been such an amazing session, listening to so many, you know, inspiring conversations on, you know, diversity and inclusion. Lucy, I guess, what are your kind of insights or learnings or takeaways from this morning's guests, and also as a result of the project as well?
I mean, it's been really great and such lovely, energetic speakers, and I've been taking notes, even if I'm awful at names. But yeah, I think, and again, what this does to that whole safe space thing is, you know, it's just having the conversation. It's just giving the opportunity to reflect and go, what does this typeface mean? Why is it? And it's just lowering the barrier instead of like, you should be inclusive and D&I, or, you know, actually, it's just making a safe space to explore it. And then in the process, surface actually, and then we, you know, in advertising, the science backs it up. You know, more inclusive, diverse advertising is more memorable, impactful, more effective, fosters better, more interesting storytelling. And we know more and more, everyone's more comfortable every year and year in the government surveys, certainly in the UK anyway, of identifying their different intersectionalities. I mean, from LGBTQ+, over half of under 25s now identify as less than 100% heterosexual, and that's going up every year. But you know, that shift and that freedom is being applied everywhere. So if you're doing communications, which is what this is, having a great conversation, and typography is communication in this purest early form, is encouraging to people to kind of just acknowledge that different is good. Usualizing difference. You don't have to get it, you don't have to be it, but you have to allow space for it, and there's real power, like business effectiveness in there. So it's not just ethical, it's most, you know, to the whole point of you've got to have a drive. You know, to some people who are not mindful of it or aware of the power of it, they don't realize that it's good for business. It's not just ethical and good for people, it's good for you, it's good for business, it's good for creativity. We've just seen some great examples of that. So yeah, and yeah, I really love that how do we do better, and that having a drive, having some knowledge relative to your own, checking your assumptions as well. Really important to do that, particularly if you're not sure.
The unconscious bias as well. That kind of stood out for me as well. Just hearing those discussions.
Yeah, I think that's the key thing. Is don't be afraid to have a go. Just ask, just check. There's so many amazing people. We've just heard from many of them. Organizations there to help. I mean, honestly, and do it. Actions speak. That was the last point on that CQ piece from. So like, just have a go. And this is a great initiative because it's encouraging and enabling it. So love it. It's really good.
Me too. Cool. Thank you so much, Lucy. It's been great, you know, just hearing your insights and kind of learnings, and also looking at some of the awesome creatives from 1 Minute Brief. I think I'll hand back to Steve now. Thanks again.
Amazing. Thanks, Lou and Lucy. And thank you, everyone who's joined us today for this live stream. It's been pretty epic. Especially our hosts, Peter and Lou, our guests, Nick, Guy, Ria, Alex, Jason, Barclay, Jess, Marsha, Sarah, and Lucy. Thank you all for joining us, giving us your amazing insights and thoughts and inspiration. A big thank you to all the brands and organizations who've embraced the font, from Superdrug to Currency Cloud, the APA, the Conscious Advertising Network, Moonlighting Films. There's just so many people, and it's just amazing to see. While I was listening to Lou and Lucy, my emails were just pinging with all the downloads of the font at diversitytype.com. It's just incredible. A massive shout out to our partners, without whom this project just wouldn't be what it is today. So the D&AD, the Diversity Standards Collective, the Diversity Standards Trust, People of Print, Clear Channel, Zeta Fonts, and Monotype. It's been a real team effort. Thanks to Stylist for your wonderful feature. You can go to your local supermarket or tube station in the UK or check out their website. And this afternoon, we'll be live on Instagram. That's at We Are Distillery with Stylist and Monotype and one of our designers. So tune in. And I wanted to say a big thank you to all the incredible creators from around the world, everyone who submitted and got involved in the project. We've had a lot of feedback on the project, and this is something that is going to continue. This is a journey. And a big thank you to all the distillers that have been on this journey together. It's been quite the undertaking. It's all raising money for charity. So it's just something that we've all rolled up our sleeves, got on with, tried our best. We've engaged into some really interesting conversations that are going to continue within the business, and we'll be sharing those across our blog and our social channels. So as I said, this is just the beginning. Please download the font, share how you use it using the hashtag DiversityType, and we'll be releasing more iterations of the font that are more accessible in the future. And we've got some really exciting plans for Diversity Month in October. So stay tuned. Make sure you follow us on social at We Are Distillery, and say hello, show how you're using the font. And I'm going to end the live stream now with our manifesto, our diversity manifesto. Thanks again for joining us.